Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished ministers, senior officials, esteemed representatives from member countries, development partners and colleagues from across the solar and energy community. On behalf of the International Solar Alliance, it is my privilege to welcome you all to this special session, Illuminating Pathways, ISA's flagship reports launch. Today, we gather to celebrate not just the launch of a series of landmark publications, but also the shared vision of transforming the world's solar journey, a vision which is powered by collaboration, knowledge, and innovation. The ISA flagship reports are an essential part of the global solar dialogue. They provide evidence-based insights, data-driven trends, and practical recommendations that support policy, investment, and capacity building across the global south. To set the stage for today's discussions, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General of the International Solar Alliance, to deliver the welcome address and share key insights from ISA's latest analytical reports. DG, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable President of ISA Assembly, Shri Prahlad Joshi, Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Honorable Co-President, Ambassador of France, Thierry, Secretary Sarangi and delegates, thank you so much. We are here to release multiple reports. Let me straight away go into the details. It's not working. Let me work. Yes, it is. So we heard a lot of you that we should be combining our reports that used to be separate for markets, investments, and technology as one set. We are pleased that today we will be launching the World Solar Trends, which is combining the outlook on markets, what's happening on investments, and what's happening on technology. As part of a thematic focus, this year we are focusing on green skills for jobs in Africa. Because we realize that every country eventually is very keen to look at the jobs agenda for the youth, and therefore it's very important to also have a narrative of what is the scope for jobs in Africa. Then, after a gap of some years, we are launching a much more exhaustive ease of doing solar. It's an updated format where 123 countries have been classified across 4 classifications: achievers, influencers, progressive, and potential. This is assessed across 7 parameters that we'll be sharing with you. And finally, we heard, especially the Global South researchers will need a platform for cutting-edge research relevant for Global South. There is a journal called Solar Compass, which is done jointly with the leading agency of research. And we are launching a special issue today, which is focusing on integrated PV applications. I'll quickly go through some of the big messages that we would like to share with you. The first message that I have been sharing, but let me start with that. If you look at what's happening on global solar PV installations, you will see a fast graph, but it was a linear graph almost till 2021. The world reached 1,000 gigawatts in 2022, and it reached within 2 years above 2,200 gigawatts by 2024. As I mentioned yesterday, this is expected to continue largely on economic grounds because solar and PV is becoming economically viable. For the first 6 months in 2025, the share of energy generation, which has obviously lagged, as we will talk about in a bit, on renewables, also was higher than the share of coal. The third point that I have mentioned before, but let me also reiterate, 71% of all current solar additions are happening in Asia Pacific, and that is likely to continue for next couple of years, giving a much more onerous responsibility to a Global South institution based in Asia like ISA. The second message, and a lot of you have mentioned about the constraints of land, there is a much reduction in module cost that's happening largely because of the module power that's gone up from 300 watt power to 750. but also it is leading to a much lower amount of land allocation per megawatt of solar production. Our estimate is that if you use 800 watt modules, up to 15% less land is required. This innovation on technologies and its efficiencies are continuing to inverters as well. Voltage architecture is increasing from 1500 to 2000 volt. We all heard about the cumulative utilization factor, where solar energy is much lower than a similar megawatt from coal or gas. It's gone up from 16% about 5-6 years back to as much as 24%. And of course, with perovskite and others getting commercially viable, it is expected to touch 26 or even more as well. All of this is leading to competitively determined prices significantly reducing. I mentioned about 90% over a decade, but just in last year, on an average across the globe, we are looking at levelized cost of energy coming down as much as 21% to roughly about 3.6 US cents. And for 2/3 of the global markets, this is now the lowest cost of energy. Now, one aspect that I just talked about, which is that the solar generation is much lower than solar capacity, because the cumulative utilization factor, or what is called PLF for solar, is much lower, around 20-24%, compared to roughly 60 to 80% for thermal. Solar today accounts for 22% of global installed capacity, but only 8% of generation right now. But there is a very interesting example if you look at the graph on the left. Now, what this shows is what is the global share in solar capacity of key countries or continents, and what is the global share in solar generation. Since all countries have almost the same CUF, that ratio should have been similar. Therefore, India is today 5.7% of global share and roughly about 4.6% in solar generation. US is 10.4, 8.7, Brazil is 3 and 2.8. The only outlier is China, because we all know it is almost 10 times bigger than anyone else on generation, but they are having a lot more curtailment of solar than on the capacity. And therefore, you see almost a 14% difference between the actual share of generation in capacity and the global share in solar generation. This is largely an issue where India has solar as a must-run station, which means whenever solar is ready for dispatch, the grid operator system operator has to dispatch it. That is not the case in most countries, including China. And that is a very important question when you look at commercial viability, when you sign PPAs, that is solar getting curtailed or not. Now, a very important message we are seeing is if your country is looking at a policy target of X gigawatts of solar, probably it's not going to be the right strategy. Every target should increasingly be of gigawatts of solar and gigawatt hours of storage combined, along with a very clear transmission plan of how you're actually going to manage the resource integration of the renewable capacity. As you know, the storage, which roughly was only 370 gigawatt hours by 24, is projected to increase by almost 20 times over the next 10 years. And as you see the graph on the left, it talks about how all of you have been asking us in bilaterals that the storage is largely used for managing peak hours when sun is not there, which is energy shifting. Some of it only is happening on looking at ancillary serves or managing the commercial arrangements. That is going to go increase much more. But more importantly, I want to reiterate this message that till now, storage is thought of as either through tender along with generation. So most countries, including of course in India and other places, there's a combined tender of solar and storage in generation. We are now envisaging with especially more of DRE, that is also going to be a point. Distribution will see a lot of battery storage going ahead. We are taking all of you to the first South Asian largest battery storage done in distribution in Delhi, 40 megawatt hours, and you will see how this is actually going to become more and more important. The other element is doing a lot of storage at the consumer end, where there is a lot of technology of trading peer-to-peer. That's at least there are about 15 startups in India reaching scale of allowing consumers to trade power to each other based on the storage that you have. And finally, again emphasizing what the power grid mentioned yesterday, most countries are struggling for expansion of renewables because solar is easy to do, but transmission would take time. So please make sure you have enough transmission planning and resource adequacy and upfront investments to absorb renewable energy, because upwards of 1,500 gigawatts of RE is awaiting grid connections. Very important question we discussed over lunch with the ministers yesterday is that most countries still think of storage as lithium-ion batteries. We believe this will dramatically change over the next couple of years because there's a huge innovation happening on mechanical, thermal, electrical, and chemical solutions, whether it's to do with tiles, with molten salts, redox batteries. We have recently done a separate study that looks at different elements of modularity, energy density, efficiency, responsiveness, and we believe each country must look at a range of battery storage solutions that will suit your temperature, your needs, and that is probably going to give different level of markets. To do that, each country must develop a regulatory instrument. One of the aspects we have studied is how India's innovation on doing round-the-clock tenders and FDRE that you heard Seki talk about yesterday allows you to have a regulatory contract only for specific hours of night peak and other arrangements which might be a problem. And private sector is coming out with great ingenious solutions on what is the mode of providing you those particular hours. So this transparent competitive procurement on regulation will be very important to take advantage of all the new storage solutions for which a lot of research and development is happening, and that's also an area we believe governments need to focus a lot more on. We believe that decentralized renewable energy is probably going to be one of the biggest percentage increases in next couple of years for various reasons. One, as governments are keen for inclusion, whether for women and marginalized sections, because of the modular nature of DRE, it allows a very targeted use. But three aspects are very important. First, let me talk about the big use in agriculture. India is having a PM Kusum program of more than 3.5 million pumps, probably is going to go bigger, but we have been discussing with a lot of African delegation heads of state, where with just 4% of arable land today being cultivated, solarization of agriculture primarily through pumps is going to be one of the key requirements in Africa for use of solar. For example, in a pilot that was done in Uganda, 193% was the increase in production after using solar irrigation system. Our calculations suggest that average farmer can save $100 to $140 by replacing diesel-powered pump set from solar power pump sets. The payback period is roughly about 4 to 5 years if you replace a diesel power with solar power pump. Second is on solar rooftop. A lot of countries are still in early stages of having a policy and regulatory environment for solar rooftop. But with reduction in price, we believe when you look at the tariffs, starting with commercial and industrial consumers, some of you who were in regional committee meeting in Africa saw the 18 megawatt commercial industrial establishment just outside Accra. We believe in Africa especially, starting with commercial and industrial consumers, solar rooftop has a huge potential to enhance the industrial productivity because the tariffs there are as high as 25 to 35 US cents. It is inhibiting industrial competitiveness. It will eventually go to residential consumers as well, which is also the case of India, which is trying 10 million solar rooftops. And finally, for access, Africa is the continent that still has a huge deficit on energy access, almost 680 million people. while 560 just in last couple of years have benefited from off-grid solutions, which are solar home systems, mini grids, and the like. We believe at least 40, if not 50% of Africans will get energy access from these off-grid sources, and that is why our Africa Solar Facility is focusing on private sector investments on off-grid sites in Africa. Finally, this is a very important point that most of us, and including a lot of governments, have been asking for a huge amount of concessional finance to solve this problem. We believe, if you just look at the numbers, 2 trillion was spent on clean energy investments in 2024, whereas if you look at the first bullet, the total money that was done on concessional public finance was roughly only 100 billion, which means 1.9 trillion is all by private sector. And that is an indication that the key for governments is to make yourself ready for private sector and not keep asking for a lot of only concessional finance. We believe the role of public money is to do leverage, and therefore, while there is a huge discussion in G20 and others on increasing the leverage from 1:2 to 1:4, through the Africa Solar Facility that we are going to launch, we are planning a leverage of 1:20, because I believe with very scarce public money, those models are really required. The second big thing we are discussing in our reports is that renewable energy and transmission are by very nature 25-year assets, and therefore they are ideal for pension funds and sovereign wealth funds to invest. However, very little investment is happening by those classes. Just to give you foreign institutional, just to take an example of India, less than 1% of assets for global sovereign wealth funds and pension funds have been invested in India. Even Indian Sovereign Wealth Fund and Life Insurance Corporation and EPFO have not been investing in India. As I mentioned, in Africa, when I was there, a Sovereign Wealth Fund Forum, more than 1 trillion of pension and sovereign wealth fund of Africa is today not being invested for Africa's investment in renewable energy and transmission. And that, to us, is really one of the big sources of finance that will need to be tapped for long-term investments. We are going to work on infrastructure investment trusts in case of India that can be the vehicle for middle-income countries. Let me quickly go to the other report. One report is that on Africa, we are talking about 2.5 million jobs, but if in high-case scenario, we believe the small scale will actually lead to the highest increase in jobs, could be as much as 4.2 million. And same is the true for downstream. And this is a huge potential, especially on technicians and small-scale systems that again reiterate the importance of Star C, which are the centers of excellence. If they can attune to almost the small-scale operations, maintenance, manufacturing kind of private sector-led jobs, this can be a great vehicle for job creation in Africa. Just some key recommendations: a lot of regulatory work, alignment of curricula and digital learning that actually aligns to private sector needs and promotes a lot of learning from each of the countries. Those are some of the key findings from what African digital skills are really there. Let me go to the other report quickly. As I mentioned, we analyzed 123 countries across 7 analytical and 56 indicators. 20 countries are in achievers, 53 as influencers, 31 as progressive, and 19 as potential. Now you may ask, does this kind of a rating really translate into reality? We checked that 88% of investments and 80% of cumulative solar installations across ISA member countries have happened in achievers. That is the best market sign, that if you are an achiever, that's where the private sector is coming and investing. The parameters were more on the macroeconomic, then on the sector side, policy enablers, technological feasibility, market maturity and infrastructure, and finally looking at financing and energy imperatives. In each continent, Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe and others, and LAC, we have given a separate rating of how different continents and different countries are performing. This is just a very quick snapshot. You will see more on the reports. 13 countries have retained their previous classification as achievers. They include India, US, Australia, France, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Germany. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Denmark, and Israel. Now, more than half of the countries that are in top quartile of technological feasibility, implying the quality of solar irradiation and the potential, are in Africa, reflecting that while the technological feasibility is highest in Africa, unfortunately, most of the African countries are in either progressive or potential, reflecting the huge need for focus on Africa for taking it forward. And Asia-Pacific regions are performing very well on policy enablers, market maturity, and macroeconomy. Let me quickly go to the last. As I mentioned, we must have a vehicle for the bright researchers, the PhD students, to do a lot of innovative thinking on what is really the technological needs of Global South, both for combating climate change, accelerating the energy transition, and looking at what are the innovations that are possible. We have today a solar compass session that is looking at 8 papers, 4 on agriculture PV, which has been a subject matter of huge discussion for some of the bilaterals, building integrated PV, which I continue to say can be a game changer for developing world, floating PV, and battery coupled PV. But to make it more representative in terms of way forward, we have 12 countries who are coming onto the editorial board so that it becomes a much more research-focused agenda, and we will announce a set of awards of the best reviewer and top 3 best papers starting next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Director General, for that insightful overview. Your remarks have beautifully set the tone for this morning, reminding us about the versatility of solar energy and its power of leaving no one behind in this global energy transition journey. Thank you. We now have the privilege of hearing from a leader who has been at the forefront of India's clean energy transformation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Santosh Sarangi, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, to deliver the keynote address. Mr. Sarangi has been instrumental in advancing India's renewable energy policies and in fostering innovation, partnerships and reforms that are shaping the future of a sustainable energy access. Secretary, sir, we are honored to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Honorable Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Food and Consumer Affairs, and President of ISA, Sri Prahlad Joshi ji, Ambassador of France, DG of ISA, Honorable Minister of Energy and Green Transition, Government of Ghana, Mr. John Abdul Jinapur, Ms. Oka of ADB, and distinguished guests. It's my pleasure and privilege to join you on this occasion of launch of International Solar Alliance Flagship reports. As all of you know, India stands at the forefront of global solar revolution, and we have expanded the installed capacity from less than 3 gigawatt of solar energy in 2014 to about 128 gigawatt by today. There has been almost a 30-fold jump in a decade, and this transformational journey of India has been anchored in its ambition, Panchamrit commitment, which was given by our Honorable Prime Minister in COP26. And in this, we have an ambition of achieving 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel-based energy installation by 2030. And out of this, we expect solar will contribute more than 300 gigawatt to this capacity. This will reduce our carbon emission by 1 billion tons, and it will meet more than half of our electricity requirements from renewables. We are already at 257 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel-based sources, and we are well on course to achieve about 500 gigawatt by 2030. DG ISA has spoken of some schemes like PM Surya Ghar and PM Kusum, which are probably the largest rooftop solarization program as well as farm solarization program. And in this, under PM Surya Ghar, we are targeting about 10 million households to be solarized within a period of next 1 to 1.5 years. And we are converting diesel pump sets into solar pump set, and we aim to add about 35 gigawatt of farm solarization in the next 1.5 years. So in terms of demography, we know that we have a lot of challenges with about 1.4 billion people. But this demography also provides us to innovate and find out low-cost solution which can be taken to scale. And this is what we are trying to do through expansion of distributed RE in our country. And this is one experience which we will be more than happy to share with the rest of the world. And this has immense potential for Global South. We also have, you must have heard, SECI's mechanism of competitive bidding process in driving down prices. Today, we discover prices at less than 3 cents for solar energy and about 4 cents for wind energy. And this has happened because of a very transparent competitive bidding process that we have adopted in the country. And SECI must have shared their experience with all of you yesterday. And in this is also an area where we are more than happy to collaborate with the interested countries in sharing the experience of SECI and promoting green energy transition in their respective countries. Innovations and strong institutional support remain one of the pillars of our success. And today, solar energy is one of the mainstays of India's energy transition as well as energy security. We also have massive schemes where we support transmission infrastructure at state and federal level to evacuate RE power from RE-rich zones to non-RE rich zones. Our dedication to sustainability and technological leadership is demonstrated by our innovative work in floating solar, in hybrid renewables, and in green hydrogen. So taken together, we expect that for our green transition journey, we will be reaching about 300 gigawatt of solar by 2030. And for our green hydrogen mission, where we are aiming to create 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, we will be requiring another 80 to 90 gigawatt of solar energy to be installed. And this ISS program in Africa, Pacific and Latin America, including OSOWOG initiative that they have spoken of, exemplify our spirit of South-South cooperation and shared prosperity. India keeps pushing for fair access to renewable energy, financial equality, and strong cooperation in the fight for global solar adoption through global groups like G20 and COP. India's model of reconciling fast growth with a shift to clean energy has been possible because of our record low solar tariffs, a production-linked incentive plan which have enabled India to set up about 100 gigawatt of module manufacturing capacity, and this has helped push local manufacturing growth. It has also enabled green bonds market to take off in the domestic market, and we have also seen a very strong public-private partnership in the country. ISS flagship journal, Solar Compass, was created as the organization's global R&D thought leadership platform, and today's launch will only provide the necessary platform for sharing cutting-edge research, practical demonstration in a variety of applications, including floating photovoltaics, public integrated PVs, and agri-photovoltaics. All of our research, workforce program, and collaborations together strengthen ISS's resolve to establish solar energy as the foundation of sustainable growth and prosperity on a worldwide scale. Let us maintain this momentum, encourage creativity and cooperation so that solar energy can actually become the source of light for generations to come. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Sarangi, for those inspiring remarks. Your words remind us of India's leadership and commitment to ensuring that clean energy becomes a driver of inclusive and equitable growth across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now honored to welcome His Excellency, Dr. Thierry Mathou, Ambassador of France to India for the special address. France and India, as co-founders of the International Solar Alliance, continue to champion the spirit of global cooperation. Dr. Mathou's leadership and France's unwavering support have been vital in strengthening ISA's program. Excellency, we're delighted to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Honourable Minister of New Energies, dear President of International Solar Alliance, Honourable Minister Mr. John Abdullahi Jinapur, DG, dear Ashish, Eminent House Secretary Mr. Sarangi, Ms. Myohoka from ADB, distinguished guests and delegates, good morning. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to join you right after ISA 8th Assembly General Meeting, which reaffirmed the members' commitment to advance a clean energy future, to combat climate change, but also to support growth, development, and of course, energy security and sovereignty. Discussion yesterday highlighted that innovation in renewable energy is advancing at a rapid scale through new technologies and low-cost solutions. However, for this transition to be fair and sustainable, and for innovations to be useful, nobody can be left behind. This requires investment in capacity building, information sharing, local manufacturing, skills development, and research partnerships that empower developing economies to lead the energy future. One way to do this is to promote through leadership, exchange of best practices, and collective assessments. The 4 ISA flagship reports we have now on the table will be an important support for all countries wishing to set up forward-looking strategies in solar energy. They add a lot to the work also made by the International Energy Agency. I would like to specifically highlight the fact that the issue concerning solar PV skills and jobs in Africa will resonate with the Starseed centers like the Solar Academy that was launched a year ago in Senegal with French support. France has been a historical supporter of ISA's activity regarding skills development and capacity building through the Starseed program. The centers created under this program help train solar professionals, build expertise, create local networks, and enhance institutional capacities in these countries. They are conceived in close partnership with the local universities, governments, and private sectors in order to correspond as much as possible to the local needs. In Senegal, for instance, after discussion with the local private sector, a specific training has been organized in order to target directly the informal sector. I want to thank ISA Secretariat for preparing these reports and to member countries for engaging with ISA in order to produce this work. I am sure they will be great support to countries' development in solar energy. Ladies and gentlemen, Multilateralism can only be reinforced when everyone has the same level of information. Ahead of COP30 in Brazil, France, together with ISA, is ready to defend facts and science to fight climate disinformation and guide the global transition. I wish you all a most fruitful and inspiring session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for those thoughtful reflections. France's continued partnership and commitment to knowledge, technology, and capacity sharing between the global North and South remain a source of inspiration for all of us. Thank you. It is now my great honor to invite His Excellency, Mr. Prahlad Joshi, Honorable Minister of New and Renewable Energy and Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Government of India and President of the International Solar Alliance to deliver the presidential address. Mr. Joshi's leadership continues to guide the ISA's global mission to make solar the foundation of sustainable development and energy access for all. So we are deeply privileged to hear your address.
Good morning to all. Mr. John Janapara, Honorable Minister, Energy Ghana, Dr. Thierry Mathieu, Ambassador of France to India and Co-President ISA, Ms. Oka, Country Director ADB, Sri Santosh Sarangi, Secretary MNRE, Sri Ashish Khanna, Director General ISA, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. I am very pleased to join the launch of the International Solar Alliance latest flagship reports. This movement shows the growing leadership of the Global South in shaping the clean energy future. As we launch these reports, we will not be just releasing the data, we shall be renewing our shared commitment. Across the world, climate challenges are getting worse. But at the same time, our determination is growing strong. We see the effects of the climate change worldwide, whether it is in the form of untimely rain or longer summers, shifting the weather, affecting the lives and livelihoods. Even here in Delhi, we can feel it, the pollution around us is a reminder why we must now act. Despite all our progress, the access to affordable and reliable energy is still uneven, especially across the Global South. This is why ISA stands as a beacon of hope and action, bringing the sunlight to the heart of global development. Today, technology is advancing faster than ever before. These innovations call for the bold and forward-looking action. I am happy to see that the International Solar Alliance has taken up the challenge with a purpose and a confidence. Our new strategy builds on a proven success. It addresses the real bottlenecks in finance, policy, and technology. And most importantly, it appears every member country to succeed in energy landscape of tomorrow. Across the world, nations are introducing the policies and the financial mechanism to enable the solar growth. But as the new ISA reports show, progress remains uneven. In 2024, global solar investment crossed $521 billion, yet the Global South received less than 7% of that. This imbalance, this disparity makes the knowledge sharing and collaboration not just important, but it is absolutely essential. That is where ISA plays a critical role. We serve as a catalyst for the global solar growth, bringing together expertise from around the world. We help the countries to build their own capabilities and provide the strong technical and policy leadership. Our annual and special publication reflect this mission, giving the governments, investors, and practitioners a clarity and confidence to act. Today, we are proud to launch 3 flagship reports along with the special issue of ISA's research journal, Solar Compass. First, the Global Solar Trends and the Outlook report. It offers the comprehensive picture of the solar sector's growth and challenges. The world took 68 years to install the first terawatt of the solar power, but only 2 years to build the next. This pace of change is extraordinary. But as I said, the growth remains uneven. Africa and Latin America together attract less than 2% of the global solar investment. Our shared duty is to make the acceleration truly global, ensuring the solar access for all. Today's second launch of Ease of Doing Solar report, we understand that the policymakers and the investors need a clear evidence of what drives success. Through extensive consultation, ISA has developed a framework based on 7 key drivers: macroeconomy, policy enablers, technology, market maturity, infrastructure, finance, and energy imperatives. Countries are grouped as achievers, influencers, progressive, or potential based on these drivers. The message is simple: every nation can move faster with right enabling environment. Let me make the moment to highlight that India is proud to be in the achievers category. This is not by chance, it is a deliberate action. We removed the investment risk through the viability gap funding. We strengthened the infrastructure by waiving the interstate transmission charges for the solar and storage. We built the market maturity with the PLI scheme to create full domestic supply chain. We reformed the financial ecosystem, allowing the insurance surety bonds as an alternative to bank guarantees, freeing up the working capital for the developers. This shows that the ease of doing solar framework is not just a theory, it is a roadmap that works. Third, the solar PV skills and the jobs in Africa report. As per the report, Africa can host 1.3 terawatts of the solar capacity by 2030 and create 4.2 million jobs. The report highlights how skill development will determine the scale of this transformation. It offers practical steps to empower youth and create green livelihoods. This aligns with India's own programs like Surya Mitra, Vayu Mitra, and Jal Urja Mitra that are training thousands for the clean energy economy. Finally, the special issue of Solar Compass, It is ISA's R&D thought leadership journal and focus on integrated photovoltaics. It is the time to make solar a part of every aspect of the life, in our buildings, in our farms, in our factories, and in our cities. Technology like agri-PV, floating PV are no longer remote, they are essential. They allow us to produce clean energy while protecting the crops, conserving the water, and improving the productivity. India's Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthana Maha Abhiyan, which is in short PM Kusum scheme, has been one of the world's largest program for solarizing the agriculture. With an ambitious goal of 34.8 gigawatt of renewable capacity by 26, it enables the farmers to install the decentralized solar plants, adopt the solar pumps, and feed the surplus electricity to the grid. This has transformed the rural landscape, turning the cultivators into the clean energy entrepreneurs and reducing the burden of diesel-based irrigation. Ours is more than a success story. It is a model of the future where the solar energy becomes part of development itself. These publications take us closer to the goal, and they show how to expand the deployment, build the strong markets, create jobs, and make solar part of the daily life. The clean energy transition needs speed, skill, and scale. With these three S are very, very important and essential. We need more investment. We need technology and skills to reach everyone. We need innovation that strengthens the communities and brings the real benefits to the people. At the International Solar Alliance, we are committed to support every member country. We will provide the technical help, reduce the risks, and make it easier to adopt solar solutions. I assure all our partners, no country will be left behind in this transition. I invite all partners, governments, industries, and financial institutions use these insights. I urge everyone to develop their own national pathways. Let us build stronger South and South cooperation and direct more investment into the solar project that improves the lives. India is fully committed to its shared vision. We will continue to share our experience, our technologies, our lessons with all ISA partners. Together, we will take solar energy to the last mile. We will help shape a cleaner, safer, fairer world for everyone and to the next generation also. Let us move forward with a purpose. Let us make the solar for all a reality. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your powerful and visionary address. Your remarks truly encapsulate the spirit of ISA, uniting nations under one sun and one shared purpose.